So Heather, how are you doing today?
I'm doing so awesome. I do have to say a very big welcome to someone none of you know except for me, unless you were on our dial team this morning. When I dialed Miss Sharon, wave, just wave. And when she was there, she was like, no, I don't know how you got that number, but I was an agent at one time and blah, blah, blah. Well, of course, if you're not going to need life insurance, you're still probably going to need a really cool job. So I invited her onto this call today. So I just wanted to welcome her.
I love that. And welcome, Sharon. Thanks for being on with us. Super excited to have you on the call today. And Heather, before we kick the call off, if you could just talk a little bit about what you were doing prior to Family First Life and how you kind of got started with FFL, what that journey kind of looked like for you.
Sure. So the funny thing is you said quickly. You know me, I never talk quickly. But the short end of it is my husband passed away 9 years ago, which is part of the story, because at that time I was going to school to be a physical education and health teacher. And he passed away with I don't know, it was a stupid amount of time left. It was like 6 months left until I was done. So I had to finish. I had to make him proud. So I did. I took a semester off and then I finished. I got my degree. And then I went into, I got hired at a school in Connecticut. I did that for 3 years and then decided working for the man was not for me. I'd owned my own daycares. I'd always been pretty much an independent. I don't know. I sing the song, I'm an independent pony. I don't know. I was always independent. And so working for 3 years for somebody else wasn't it. So then I found on Pinterest a job called VIP Kid. It was teaching online. I was teaching Chinese students overseas, but I was teaching them English. Never once in my life did I teach English, but whatever. It was a great job. It helped me to homeschool my kids, or two of them. Then at the beginning of 2021, I had a neighbor actually, who was working with FFL. I didn't know what she was doing, but I did know she had fancy cars and she raised 6 kids on her own financially. So I said to her, what are you doing? And she told me, and this was at the beginning of that summer. And I was like, cool. And I got the code, the code for free training and all that stuff. And I think I logged on once and then I didn't make my test date. And I was like, whatever, I just kind of discarded it. But then by the end of the summer, the teaching job with China, they said no more American teachers. So we're closing this job. And then I what was I going to do? I was also moving across the country 2,400 miles. I couldn't just start somewhere. So I started door dashing and I did all those weird little apps that you can get. I didn't do anything like Uber or anything like that. I would never have some gross person in my car. But I had their food in my car and I did all that. And at that point, I don't know what made me do it, but I asked her again for that code if I was able to do that. And so I did. I told the boys my twins at that point were 12. I said, we're just going to stop door dashing for 5 days. Let me study. I studied for the 5 days, knew nothing about life insurance, except that I received it when Bill passed. When their father had passed away, I had received life insurance. I was able to pay off the house. So we didn't have to worry. We didn't have to worry about a place to live or anything like that. Okay. That's all I knew. That was the extent of my knowledge. And I passed the test in one try. So I don't even care what the score was. I passed. That's all that matters.
Right. That is all that matters.
Yeah. So I did that. And then I was slow to kind of get moving because I was moving across the country. And so I passed the test, I got my license, and then it was a whirlwind. At that point, I don't know that she was actively working. I don't remember her hand in the bucket, but I do know that I didn't have very good, or I didn't have a person helping me to get started except for Hillary Wall. I had her. She was like my main go-to person. She was amazing. So I got through all of that basically on my own, through learning how to go about doing this, which is why one of the reasons I'll never let that happen to I'll try to never let that happen to any of my agents, because it was hard. It was not easy to navigate without some assistance, I should say. So
For sure. So just to clarify, guys, some of you may have caught this. So the person who actually brought Heather into the business, she's no longer here. So Heather was a warm market hire of her. She's no longer here. So once she left, myself, Marisa, and Heather all connected. And that's kind of when Heather actually got started, was once we connected. So with that being said, if you're a new agent, I just don't want you to get deterred. Like, your onboarding is not going to look like that. Heather was working with someone that is no longer in the business, and she also wasn't very involved herself. So
yeah, she was like going from one thing to another, and I just happened to know her. And yeah, I just never want that to happen to anybody else either, right?
For sure.
But luckily we got put, I say we because it's my whole family. We got put with you, and that was wonderful. And timing is everything, right? At that time, had I been with you, you would have been like, this girl, she's annoying. She doesn't, because I was so slow. I had to move across the country. I was preparing for a wedding. I had to renovate my house. And you would have been like, she's never going to amount to anything. No, just kidding. You know, you wouldn't have thought that way, but that's what I felt about myself.
No, Heather, and I never felt that way about you. And I was saying this to you this morning, and it's because you were very honest on the front end. Like, Heather didn't come in and, like, the first initial conversations we had, Heather never told me like, hey, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to buy leads. I'm going to write 20,000, protect 20 families a month. Like, Heather didn't tell me that. She painted a very clear picture for me. She said, hey, I'm moving from Connecticut to Texas. I'm getting married. This is what it actually looks like. Like, I'm not going to be able to get started right now. And then once Heather told me she was going to get started, she got started. She didn't buy leads and not dial them. She didn't not show up on the dial teams. She was plugged in, locked in, loaded. And that's how I knew that I wanted to work with Heather, and that I just adored you from day one, because you were always just so honest. So it looked a lot different, Heather, because you were honest on the front end about what it was actually going to look like for you to get started, as opposed to you telling me, basically you telling me what you think I want to hear. But that wasn't going to be actuality for you. So it worked out. I think it worked out for everyone. Heather, with that being said, you're all telesales. So you've been in one home, right? You've done that one home.
I had one client in Connecticut, and that was it.
Okay. So she's done one in-home appointment. So started doing everything completely remotely, telesales. Heather, why did you want to do telesales? Like, what was your reasoning for wanting to do telesales, and how your start wasn't easy doing telesales? Like, how did you kind of overcome that learning curve, if you will?
Well, I never ever was told I had to do one way or another, which is good, because I'm really not good with being told anything.
Right. That's why you're in business for yourself.
Yeah, I don't like being bossed. I don't mind guidance, but I don't like being told I have to do something. I usually do the opposite if somebody tells me that. But in reality, my kids, like I said, I took them out of public school and I homeschooled them, and that was the biggest thing. I was working online with the Chinese students, and I was teaching them in the morning and in the evening, and then I could, do with this things with my kids in the midday. So I needed something that aligned with that, and that's why, and now they're a few years older, or 2 years older, and now I just work because I can. They're pretty much homeschooling themselves in a sense, they're older. So I'm there to guide them, but I can just do it whenever I want. And even if you notice, my daughter Morgan is on, she's not showing her face, but I'm actually at her house visiting her for a week, and I love it because I am telesales. I can work from anywhere, and I do. I work from anywhere. I've worked in closets, I've worked in restaurants, I've worked in, Vermont, I've worked across the country as I traveled and I moved. I can work from anywhere. And that is, I would never give that up. If I can't even imagine giving that up. So
I love that.
I don't
And
know if that answered your full question though.
no, it answered enough of it. We'll get to the other part of the question, but Heather, when you first came in, I know you struggled a bit, but
Oh,
what
yeah.
I love about you is that you never gave up. Like me and Marisa will always talk about how mentally strong you are. Because I feel like you struggled to the point that most people would have quit. So when you were struggling, when you initially got started, what kept you pushing? Like, what was your why? What kept you pushing? And what advice would you give to a new agent that's struggling? Whether they're in home or going through telesales or doing telesales.
So yeah, that part doesn't matter. What I think really matters is I didn't feel like not that I didn't have another choice in a negative way, but I didn't allow myself to have another choice.
Mm-hmm.
In the very, very beginning, there was well, maybe you could go back and DoorDash. And I was like, I could, but I think I can succeed in this. I'm pretty sure that if they're telling me, and I say they, all the wide world web of FFL people who are successful, what do they say? Push through, do it, just don't stop. As soon as you think you have to stop, don't stop, because you'll get over that bump. And every single time, that's what happened, right? And for all of you who are on here who are not Marisa and not Christina, because they're going to shake their heads when I say this, I called them multiple times about to cry or crying because I wasn't sure what was going to happen next. I was scared. I'm the only one in my family, in my, immediate family. My husband, my new husband, he, this is important. This is my why. He was in the Navy for 20 plus years before we were married, before I even knew him. To me, he deserves to do what he wants because he took care of our country. And I find that very strong, like that people who do that deserve anything that they don't get. They don't get a lot. So I wanted to make sure that he could go back to school. He's in school right now using his GI Bill. So financially, I had to make sure that we were okay for him to do that. And I want that for us as a couple and we're growing older, and I want to be able to eventually retire with him. So that being said, when it came to the point of me crying because my bills were stacking up, my credit cards were stacking up, buying leads, at some point I had to say, well, what do I do next? Well, you have to get through to those leads. you gotta call them. They all at some point wanted your help. You have to just find a way to get to them. I did try door knocking once. It was pretty successful. But I'm just not an out of the house kind of person. So I was hoping, and I had all these hopes of going once a month to door knock, and yeah, not so much. But my family is why. Well, I want to make sure that him and I, once our kids all grow up and we can travel to see them when we want, we can do what we want and go there and do the things across the country we need to do. So getting past those tears and getting past the hard times, eventually you'll get to call Marisa and Christina and be like, guess what? I just paid off another credit card bill. And that was the best. That is the best. I think I was up to 10 credit cards, and now we're only down to 3. So that makes me very excited that's, it works. It works. And you are a business owner, and you can't forget that. As a business owner, normally a business owner takes out money from a bank to start their business. I mean, could you do it that way? Yeah. And was I debating that at some point? Yes. But as a business owner, you have some sort of debt that you have to accrue to be successful, sometimes you don't, I mean, unless you have all kinds of money, which I did not. Like I said, I was door dashing. So those were the hard times, and I didn't have a choice but to pull through them, like always.
You said so much there, and I think
I
it's
know.
so important to realize as a new agent, like even if you've been in the insurance industry for some time now, you probably weren't in a system that looked like FFL. So there's literally a whole new skill set that you're going to have to learn working with Family First Life. And no one expects you to master that overnight. But it's so important to stay plugged in so your mind stays right. Because like 90% of this is just mindset. So if you plug into the podcast, you plug into the trainings, the dial teams, like you will not lose. And I truly believe that's why Heather has won, because she's always plugged in. Like I don't think you've missed a training, Heather.
No, and also when I go on my walks every morning, I don't start until 8 o'clock. My schedule is very important to me, and I think that's for, FFL has taught me that. But when I'm in Texas, when I'm in El Paso, my home, I'm 2 hours behind you guys. Okay, so for the guilt I used to feel for not being on the dial team at 8 o'clock, your 8 o'clock, my 6 o'clock, I had to get over that too. That was pretty deep for me. But everybody was telling me, make a schedule, not telling me, but I was listening to the trainings, and it was important. So when I started working more come May of last year, that was one thing that I did, a major change that helped me, was making a schedule that was good for us, and us being my whole family. So in the morning, I spend some time with Ron, my husband. I make sure that he's Heather fed. I don't know what you want to call it, but our relationship is fed, right? Have breakfast with him. Then he leaves for school and I go on my walk. And every single day, if I'm not talking to Morgan, because 2 days a week she works from home, so I talk to her. On the other days, I am listening to some training, usually Ryan Reynolds. He's one of my favorites. Actually, Ginger, having her the other day, that was huge. I resonated with her well, so I listened to her as well. And then I get at home, I water my plants. I'm now, and of course pray and all that stuff. I have a prayer call every morning. Now I feel good at my 8 o'clock starting to work, right? And so yes, it's 10 o'clock Eastern time. You know what? If the people are going to answer, they're going to answer. Right? It doesn't really matter. And so then if I don't get them because they're at work, then I call them at, 4 o'clock my time, 6 o'clock your time. Hey, they're out of work now. Right? So, and I was just telling Sharon this morning that I literally have, I think I have 24 states now, but I started with one in each time zone, because then I could adjust my home schedule to work with my work schedule.
Right.
And it was critical. And don't forget Alaska. Don't forget, they're a whole nother time zone.
Yeah.
So is Hawaii, but Hawaii is very expensive. Hawaii is like $450. So yeah, that
to
would
get
have
licensed.
Yeah,
not for leads, guys, to get licensed.
Oh yeah. Leads are leads.
No, I love that. And guys, like it's inevitable. There's going to be a learning curve there. And while you're going through that learning curve, Heather's such a family person. Like it's really important whether you're a single parent, you're married, whatever that family dynamic looks like for you, your support system, if you will, that they understand the end goal with Family First Life. They understand the opportunity, and they understand what it's going to actually look like while you're getting started. Just like Heather said, you're starting your own business. Like you're gonna go through trials and tribulations. It would be weird if you didn't. So Heather, one of the things I think you did a really good job of was just having your whole family on board. Like your family is so supportive, not only of you, but of the whole team. Like I absolutely adore them. What did those conversations kind of look like initially?
Well, I'll tell you, even before this, all three of my men at home texted me, said, good luck today. I was like, how come you're not jumping on? And they're on their way to lunch with Oma. So they're literally, always supporting, of course, of course they like the money too. So it's very helpful to them. But, and Nathan and Camden, my twins, they work with me. I do employ them. I do give them each 3% of my IP each month. They do things for me that they can do. They're almost 14. So one of them does like my finances, and he puts in all the money that I make each month into a chart that they made. Of course, they're homeschooled too, so this is all learning for them, right? And then the other one, he sends out thank you cards and birthday cards to my clients. And if I if I need some information, I'm like, where, can you send me a screenshot of so-and-so's lead or whatever, not leads, client information sheets or whatever. So everybody really has a hand in our business. Morgan, actually, she was at first, she bought me these, she made these fancy pens.
Oh,
So,
I love that.
so, and she actually, is part of our business name. It's M&H, Morgan and Heather, National Insurance. So we are, definitely, you have to have your family. And I say you have to have your family on board, which when I hear that from other people and you don't want to feel, well, I don't have family or I don't have that support. I don't want you to feel that way either, right? I want you to understand that has been how my family has been how I've been able to be so successful, I guess, because of the support that they give me. If you don't have that, you have us.
You do have us, but guys, it's so important for your family to be on board, or your loved one, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whoever it may be, because if they're feeding you like toxic energy about the business, and especially when you're not getting the results that you want, it's gonna be a lot easier for you to leave than stay at that point.
It's hard to gain that trust from your family though at first if you aren't being as successful as you want to be, right? So as long as you're headstrong and and you have to tell yourself, I think, first, that this is going to be good. This is a good thing. There's no bad about this company that I'm aware of yet, for sure. So if you are positive about it and be like, I would go out into the living room and I'd be upset because I didn't sit down with anybody that day. And Ron would feed off of that. He would be like, well, maybe you should look into door dashing again, right? Because at first there was that trust of the success of it. Now he would never say that because he can see how it's working. You know what I mean? So you have to know in your heart that there's nothing, you're not going to stop. You've got to make it work, and it can work if you make it work. It's really you. It starts with you.
Yeah, 100% for sure. I think it all really comes back to like believing in yourself, believing in the system, knowing that if all these folks that came before you can do it, you can too, and just plugging in. Heather, just to kind of switch gears a little bit, how do you set the stage at like the beginning of a telesale? I know that ideally you like to one call close, but you also schedule appointments. So what does that kind of look like to build trust with the client on the front end? Like, what are some things, like, do you send them your license? Do you give them your license number? What does that kind of look like for you?
Well, I always go by Ryan's one call close script. I have it right here in front of me, even
Yeah, it's awesome.
traveling. It's up here with a sticky note on Morgan's boyfriend's TV. I use that and I follow it to the best that I can. When I do my second paragraph, after they say, after they don't hang up on me, after they don't swear at me, all that stuff. If they have that 5 minutes to talk with me, then I say, all right, is this a good number to text you at? Yes. And then I send them over. I have in my computer saved up all of my licenses. So if I send them Louisiana or whatever state they're in, I'll send it right through the texter. Let me know when you get that. And then once they get it, then I just move forward. I mean, I also let them know that number, my NPN, my license number, it's like my business social security number, because that's what it is. And if they wanted my actual, I'll give them anything I want, anything they want. I don't want to make it weird though, right? Most people that I call are not expecting somebody to come to their house. I've only had maybe like one person who was like uncomfortable with it. And then I tried to find them an agent to go see them, and I never could find anybody, and they probably, I don't know if they got coverage or not. But that being said, most people are fine with it. The appointment thing, when I do set an appointment, it's more, I've learned to make it a very vague appointment, because I don't like to stick to the time frame, because sometimes I'm on the phone, or sometimes, I don't know,
Right.
my dog throws up, whatever. I like to be flexible. So I say, okay, I'll call you sometime around 1 o'clock, or, in the afternoon or whatever.
When you schedule an appointment, Heather, do you send them anything like, say you schedule an appointment the night before, are you sending them anything that day, like a reminder text or anything like that?
Sometimes I will send out, it really depends on where I'm at that day. If I'm really busy, then no, I don't. And I just, if they answer, they answer. My system that I use is Ringy, and if you schedule it a certain way, then it does send them a reminder text.
Okay.
But because I'm not scheduling specific times necessarily, I don't use that a lot, because I want to be able to move their appointment from 1 to 3. You know what I mean? So I don't like to schedule time specifically.
Okay.
If that
Okay.
makes sense.
And I'm happy that you brought up Ringy. I know it's like really transformed your business. Um,
100%.
for agents that aren't familiar with like power dialers or Ringy or whatever it may be, how has that allowed you to really take your business to the next level? Like, what are some of your favorite functions of actually using Ringy?
The texting feature is
Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
awesome.
I used not Power Homeschool. What's it called? What was it? Phone Burner. I used Phone Burner for the whole, up until February of this year. I used Phone Burner. And what that was good for was it organized my leads. But one of the agents, I don't remember who, had mentioned Ringy. So I looked into it and had one of my kids look at the cost difference between the two, and how, if it would save us money or if it's the same or whatever. And it did save us some money, because it integrates a whole bunch of different things together. I don't necessarily use all of those things at this point, but one thing it did do was it organized my lead. I could choose what leads to dial. And then the best feature is the texting feature. Like, as soon as I upload leads, I can choose to text them an initial text. And then I don't know, probably 99.8% of the time, I'll get responses from that. Even if they're no's, that's fine. Or they stop the automatic drips, that's fine too. Like, I don't care, as long as I'm getting some sort of response. But it also pulls out the ones that aren't valid numbers, or they're not cell phone numbers. And so then you can just call those ones if you're bored one day or whatever it is. Just, it sorts them out to a better degree than Phone Burner did. And the texting and the email has been huge, because I can do that straight from there, and it takes seconds.
And with the texting feature, are you finding that you're able to like schedule appointments via text, or just get folks on the phone via text and just make sales that way?
Yeah, I actually I had a full-on sale all the way through text on an airplane. I was in an airplane. And now she's on my Facebook. She's a good client of mine. I do love having that. But yeah, full-on text right through Ringy. I was able to do that. And many times I'll get appointments set up through Ringy because of text. They tell me to call this day, this time, because my text goes out, and you can edit it to say whatever. And I do, depending on my situation. Like, being that I was in Virginia this week, I'm more of a, I don't want today or tomorrow. It's more of a, when this week is best for you. So my text can change, and it's very helpful.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. And Heather, how are you essentially building trust with the client? Because a lot of times you'll hear agents say like it's harder to build trust with the client over the phone than it is in home. So how are you building trust with the client, or how are you being proactive essentially throughout like the application process or the sale? Like, what are you saying to prep the client that essentially you're going to need some sensitive information from them? You're going to need their bank account info. You're going to need their social security number. Like, what are you doing on the front end to make sure that essentially you're not getting objections when you're asking for that throughout the actual application process?
I can say I've still gotten them a couple times, but the Ryan Reynolds telesales one does it right from the beginning. You know, you say, if you've come to the conclusion that they actually need something, right? Well, when we put this application in, the insurance carriers are going to need 3 things from you: a driver's license, and you have to be honest with them, and you've already somewhat developed a relationship with them. So they're going to need 3 things for the approval process. I don't need them now. Very important. Do not give me your driver's license, because I could care less what it is, right? And I'll say that to them. But they'll need your driver's license that just checks your driving history, no alcohol, no drugs, right? Well, they're not going to say yes. And if they do, you say, okay, tell me a little bit more, because now we got to go to a different carrier.
Right.
Right. And then your social security number, what that does is every time you go to the doctor, you give that to them, or they take that from you. And that's where all your prescriptions are. Any prescriptions you've taken that I should be aware of, they're right there.
Okay.
And then of course, I'm going to need your routing and account number, but please do not give that to me now. But you can't buy anything without paying for it first. Well, why do I need it now? Blah, blah, blah. Well, you don't need it now, but when we put this in, if it gets approved, they're going to check for, and I learned this. This is a tricky one. Did you know, and this, maybe y'all know this, but I was kind of blown away, that they only require this because of 9/11, because of the Patriot Act now. They didn't require it before that. So that's what I tell the clients. That's what I know. Because of the Patriot Act, we now have to take your banking information, and that allows you to pay for it on whatever date. Because this is with telesales, this is a big one. Well, I don't want it now. I can't afford it now. Well, of course you can't. But if you can afford it when you get paid next, is that when you want them to pull it? Oh yeah, that's fine. Well, when do you get paid? On Friday. All right, not a problem, right? So that information is out there. And if you're honest with them and you're telling them these things, then they're pretty trustworthy. I mean, I will give you everything. If you want my social, I'll give it. Like, I literally will give it to you. Have fun doing something with it.
No, I think it's so important to be honest on the front end, like to be proactive, just to eliminate obvious objections. But it's also important because then the client knows what to expect too.
Mhm.
So I absolutely love that, Heather. I just totally lost my train of thought. I was gonna say something else, but Heather, how do you close out the sale so it doesn't get how essentially do you close out the sale, like build the relationship with the client at the end? Because I know how I do it in home, but over the phone, how do you let that client know that like you're their agent for life? If they need anything, or their friends or family members or whatever it may be, may need anything, they can reach out to you.
I don't know that I do that at one point at the end. I think the biggest thing with me is I always make that relationship throughout the whole call.
Okay.
Imagine well, I don't know if you can imagine this, but imagine not being in that person's home. You're not on a picture. There's no picture, right? You're just a voice. And I typically take, probably, if it's going through the whole application, it's about 40 minutes to an hour, because I talk with them, right? I'm building that relationship with them. I'm letting them look me up on Facebook. Here's my name. Here's my link, find me. And then at the end, if they've gotten approved or not, whatever it is, hopefully they did. But if they got approved, then I send them up. Usually by then I'm either FaceTiming with them.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll switch to FaceTime if I feel like it's somebody who's serious and we're putting in an application. Do you have an iPhone? Yeah, I have an iPhone. Awesome. I'm going to FaceTime you right now. Oh, my hair. I'm like, please, I'm literally in the junkiest of clothes right now. It's all right. Right. And then even sometimes, actually, most of the time, I'll walk around my house. I'll show them my dogs. Like, I'll show them the beautiful mountains from my backyard. Like, they just know that I'm a real person.
I
And
love
that's important. And at the end, it's, if they don't ever buy anything because of whatever reasoning, it's okay, because at least they know I'm a person. That's what I care about. And so they come, they know that I'm and then when they, I close, if they do, get approved, then it's, Nathan's going to send you out. Nathan's my assistant. He's going to send
Okay.
you out a piece of paper. It'll have your policy information, and it will be my business cards. You make sure you give that to little Johnny, your beneficiary. Make sure at least he has that so that he knows to call me when something happens to you, because I'm the one who's going to take care of this for him. I'm going to take care and make sure that he gets paid the money, and I'll even write an obituary if I have to. Whatever he needs me to do, I'll do. And I will. I absolutely will.
I know you will.
I'll buy the flowers for the funeral. I don't care.
I know you will. That's why we all love you. Um, um, Heather, one thing that I love is that you add a lot of your clients on Facebook.
I do. Why? Because it's me. I have nothing to hide.
Right.
I actually, Facebook's an interesting thing. I don't care what people know about me. I had to get off Facebook during the whole COVID thing because of family. And I really got hurt by that, because I care about everybody. And this family member was basically telling me that I was not caring, in her own words. So now when I put you on my Facebook, it's because and if you don't accept me for who I am, then that's fine by me. I can't care anymore. So they're on my Facebook because I want them to know I'm real and I do care about you. 100%. If it's your birthday, I do not ever wish you happy birthday on Facebook, by the way. Why? Because I want to know it's your birthday in my calendar. Now, I might write it in my calendar afterwards, and then the next year I'll wish you a happy birthday through my texter.
Got it. Okay. And Heather, I know more recently you're building a team, you're building an agency, you have a couple of agents that you're working with now. How important is it to share the opportunity on social media? And what does that kind of look like for you? Like, you've been putting a ton of content out there. And I know you have help from Emily.
I was going to say, no, I have not. I have an awesome
But you've been
social media
creating it.
person.
You've been creating it.
She tells me what to create. So she is actually a twin mom friend of mine for, what are my kids, 13 and a half years old. And she has her own marketing thing. And I was able to realize, now remember, if this is you, it's important to think about this. There was a time when I didn't know that there was another step to just the sales part, right? So you've got your sales and helping people that you wanted to do, but there's more to it than that. There's all the crap behind the scenes that you have to deal with, right? So at some point I realized that when you guys were telling me I had to do social media and it's very important, and I knew it was because I wanted to build, but I just didn't have the time. I didn't have the time I'm so old school. I didn't even have the knowledge on how to do it. So, and even my daughter will say, like, Mom, that was, why'd you post that? And then I'll be like, well, Christina liked it.
I was gonna say, I feel like I'm always like, no, it was great, Morgan. It's great.
So finding when we went to convention this past year, that was one of my questions that I asked, I think Steve Giordano. I said to him, when do you know when it's time to hire somebody? And people call it staff. I don't know what that means. To me, I just need help, right? So he said, if you think you need to hire somebody, then it's probably too late. And I'm like, well, then I think he's probably right. So I went home from convention and I did some kind of digging around, and I found, I don't know if we can see it in your screen, but down at the bottom is Mr. CSM King. He's my assistant from the Philippines CSM. So he's my assistant, I guess. I don't know, boss. I don't know. So he's on here. So I hired him. I actually started hiring. He went full time last week because I was volunteering and I was able to do that. I was able to volunteer for an entire week with my kids because I had help. So if you're overwhelmed, you've got so much to do, you're on the phone with the carriers, holy mother of pearl. We can be on the phone for an hour with carriers, right? I just don't have time for that. So it pays to pay somebody to do stuff like that. And although my assistant is missing today, I hope he's okay. I have somebody now to be able to do that stuff.
Awesome. So right now you have a virtual assistant, you have Emily helping you with social media to build your agency, and then you have the boys as well helping.
Correct.
Awesome.
Correct.
Awesome.
Correct.
I love that. All right.
And you have to remember it's okay to need that and to do that. And it's beneficial.
Especially if you ultimately, like, your goal is to build an agency, guys, eventually you're going to get to the point where, like, you can't do everything yourself. That's completely normal. So having, you know, a VA, that's a huge help. Just like Heather said, for things like carrier outreach, sending emails, like just basic day-to-day tasks that are time consuming. And then obviously any sort of social media help, any sort of marketing help, if your goal is to build an agency, is going to be of huge assistance to you, because it's just giving you more time to put back into money-making activities.
That's the key.
At the end of the day, guys, like, we only get paid two ways. Like, we get paid for selling and we get paid for building. So any other tasks that you can delegate when you're building an agency, delegate them. The call's gone kind of late now, but before we hop off, Heather, any last words, any advice that you want to give to a new agent, or even just an agent that essentially isn't getting the results that they want to be getting?
Figure out what you're doing, because you're doing something, or shall I say not doing. Check your activity, check your dial sheet. Be honest with yourself. Are you really working? Or could you work a little harder to dial? Remember, the money-making activities, that's the important part. If you're not dialing the leads that you're buying, if you're not buying the leads that you need, then it's really just you. It really is. You just have to be honest with yourself.
I love that. And it's so true, guys. Like, the best thing about Family First Life is just that the system works if you work it. So as long as you're willing to put the work in, even if you have to overcome that learning curve, like your skill set isn't necessarily there, like, you won't lose as long as you continue to show up. So thank you so much for being on with me today, Heather. I appreciate you so much. I love to see what you're doing. And I can't wait to see where you're at, like 30, 60, 90 days from now. You literally just keep getting better every day. I appreciate you so much. So thank you for always showing up for yourself, your family, and for the team.
Thank you. Thank you all.